What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some random things about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 that I loved. My review for that game actually went up yesterday. Today is the day of its official launch, and there was a host of things while I was playing through that game that I felt really worth talking about, and I tried to mention them at least briefly in said review, but I wanted to take a moment to expand upon them a bit farther while also trying to do something a little more lighthearted, which is obviously what we're doing here. So if you like this kind of thing, by all means let me know down below. Certainly open to some feedback on it. Now with that said, before we dive fully into this, I would not personally consider anything on this list to be a spoiler per se, but obviously the game is launching today, and what spoiler means to me might not be what it means to you, so be aware of that, I suppose. Jumping into it from there, we are kicking this off with the horse you get, Herring. Now, your previous horse from the original game does actually make a return, Pebbles. You can find Pebbles and use them as your mount if you want, but as part of the main story, you get offered another horse, this one being Herring. Now, at a base, Herring has better stats than Pebbles does, so you might want to make that switch when it's offered to you, which was my own logic. Now, I also, while making that distinction, realized that, they named a reddish horse Herring, so, red herring. I thought that was funny, and I decided to keep that horse because, honestly, of just the name and the color. But it actually gets a little better than that. You see, Herring stat-wise is like average at best. The catch is, if you keep Herring long enough, and I don't know if it's time spent riding Herring or just time spent with them set as your horse or what exactly the metric is, but if you keep Herring long enough, it will unlock a perk called Red Herring. This is a hidden perk that only shows up once you've done this. And what the perk Red Herring does is it just massively increases Herring's stats to make it a great horse. But my favorite thing about this was actually the flavor text of that particular perk. So it turns out that Herring was just kind of sandbagging it for their previous owners. It just didn't really like any of them, so it wasn't trying very hard, but after getting to know you and the fact that you're both kind of underdogs, you've made a bond with this horse, and now it is working harder for you because of the bond you share. And I honestly got hit pretty hard by that, and it was one of my favorite moments of the entire game. But that brings us to our second entry. So this one is a little more ambiguous, but it is that I massacred a town. So I mentioned in my review that I was having a little bit of trouble with the crime system being inconsistent. Like sometimes I would be charged with crimes and I didn't do anything. This happened right after I started the game, as an example. I literally had not had time to commit any crimes, but they had just decided I did and attacked me. The thing is, that happened immediately after the game tells you that you're free to explore the open world right after you get out of some pillories. So narratively, I'm in the pillories dealing with that. I step out of the pillories, talk to a woman who gives you some direction to give you an idea of where to go next, only for the game to tell me I've committed a crime and I'm blindsided and attacked by guards. And because the game has just started, I don't have money to pay them, so you wind up getting caned and I'm left with 0 health. I gotta work my way out of this situation and it's a nightmare. And it only went downhill from there. But why am I telling you all this? Well, you see, all of this happened right at the starting town of the game. And right after this happened, basically every NPC in the town was super rude to me, which is mostly just down to the nature of the game. And I was like, you know what? That's gonna do it, actually. Not right now, because I'm obviously too weak, but sometime in the future, I'm going to come back to this town, and everyone here is gonna die. And that is exactly what happened, which was fun for me, albeit pretty meaningless in basically every other sense. But that does actually bring me to my next entry, because, as you may have noticed, I spent some time skirting around the edges of the law, which involved talking to officers who were mad at me for one reason or another semi-frequently. Now, I can either keep paying these fines or I could get good at talking my way out of them, which is what I actually chose to do. But this actually led me to something else I loved about the game, because I spent so much time talking my way out of these situations that I gained an appreciation for all the stories that Henry comes up with in order to get himself out of paying fines. As an example, you can see here one I did to earn an achievement for talking myself out of a hanging, where Henry convinces a guard that the woman I just murdered in broad daylight was actually a witch, so it's fine. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's all sorts of these where you'll just make little jokes or convince the guard you're somebody important, just various things like that. And there's so many little conversations you can have with guards to tell them why that this is fine. And some of them are hilarious. Some of them are more believable than others, as you might imagine. But all of them kind of made me laugh, which made for a pretty good time. Next up, however, we then have a side quest involving a haunted mine. So this was basically my favorite side quest in the game, or it wound up being one, because I just came across some dead animals, some peasants arguing over said dead animals. They had a side quest marker over their heads, so I stopped to see what was up. There's a nearby abandoned mine. The peasants think that it's haunted by some sort of devilry, but it's 15th century Bohemia, so the literal devil as far as they're concerned, and they ask you to investigate, and you can go do that. Now, right away, my initial assumption was like, oh, there's some animal living in this abandoned mine that's eating their livestock, problem solved. I'll just go kill this thing and that'll be it. But oh no, the side quest is actually a lot more than that. You see, it's not so much a wild animal living in this abandoned mine, but rather a deranged man who has fully lost his mind. To make it a little bit stranger, though, in his deranged state, his helmet somehow seems to have been fused to his head, and while you go about that side quest, you can find a whole bunch of notes explaining why this person is here and what happened to him, but it, for me at least, was by far and away the creepiest side quest that this game had to offer, and I loved every second of it. But that does actually bring me to the last thing I wanted to talk about in this particular video, which is actually the various sieges that take place in the game. Now, I don't want to give any story context here, but throughout the game there are various missions where you'll be taking part in various sides of a siege, either attacking or defending, and it was just really fun to see a lot of that stuff in motion in a more theatrical way. So over the years of my adult life, and back in high school even, in various history classes online, just following my own interests, I've always heard about siege tactics and stuff used at the time. And being able to not only see those in action, but actually, play through a scenario where they are actively being used, I think really highlighted video games as an interactive media in that particular case, because it's one thing to, read about all that stuff, but then to have this interactive experience where you can actively participate in it without the threat of burning oil being dropped upon your skull was a much more enjoyable way to see history in motion to me. And whether I was pushing ladders down with pole arms, using early versions of guns to shoot at archers upon the walls of any given castle, or trying not to be starved out before you could reach an agreement, it was all super compelling stuff that I really just enjoyed being able to see in this way, and one of the many things that makes Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 a really unique game. So hopefully you saw that here for yourself, and I hope you enjoy any of this stuff half as much as I did going into this game, and otherwise just enjoy the launch day. But for now, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.